Hello. Now last week we made savoury muffins using courgettes as well as other vegetables such as carrot. Today we're going to be making a sweet type of muffin, and guess what? It uses courgettes again. And you'll be surprised why we should be using courgette in a sweet muffin, but actually you won't taste the courgette. The courgette, all it will do once it's grated and added to the mixture is make the muffin really moist. And you can actually think, wow, I'm eating a sweet muffin, but I'm also getting some nutrition from having a little bit of green vegetable. So what we need in this particular type of muffin is the grated courgette, which I will grate in a second. We also need some butter, and we're going to be melting this butter over the hob. So the butter will actually go into the mixture melted. We need 3 eggs, we need some sugar, and I always like to mix my sugars up. So the recipe might call for a normal caster sugar, but I also like to put in things like brown sugar or light brown sugar. So that's what I'm going to be using in this recipe. Also some self-raising flour, and again, as I did last week with the savoury muffins, I'm going to be using a wholemeal self-raising flour to give it a little bit extra nutrition. Also with some ground almonds. Ground almonds also give the muffin a really nice moist texture. And to that we're going to be adding some cranberries, but if you don't have cranberries, that's fine. You can use any kind of dried fruit. If you've got some raisins or sultanas, that's fine as well. We need a little bit of baking powder, although that's not necessary if you don't have it. I'm also going to be putting some cinnamon into this, some powdered cinnamon, so if you have that, that would be good, and a little bit of salt. So what utensils do we need? We need the chopping board, we need the grater to grate the courgette, we need 2 bowls. So one bowl is to start off with, and then we're also going to be having a bowl for the dry ingredients, so the flour will be measured in a separate bowl and added. And the first thing I'm going to do is I've got the butter, and it's 200. This is a really easy recipe actually, because most of it is just 200 grams of everything and then 3 eggs. So it's 200 grams of butter which I've put in the pan, and I'm going to go over and put it on my hob on a lowish heat and allow it to melt. And while that's happening, I'm going to be getting on with preparing the other ingredients. And the first thing is 200 grams of courgette. So I'm going to start with grating that first. So the courgette is now fully grated. That's 200 grams of courgette. And now I'm going to measure the sugar. So remember I said that you don't have to use kind of regular caster sugar, you can use whatever you like. So I've got some dark brown sugar which I'm going to finish off, and that's about 120 grams there. And I'm also going to use some soft brown sugar, and I find that these sugars add another dimension to cooking and the taste of your finished product. So we're almost on 200 there. Again, use a spoon. It'll be easier to be more accurate if you use a spoon. That's 200 grams there. And to this sugar, in fact I'm just going to check on my butter, because I can hear it sizzling away, but it's still not quite melted yet. So I'm also going to crack 3 eggs into a separate bowl. 1, 2, and 3. And give those a whisk. And then pour those eggs into the sugar and give those all a whisk up as well. So if you've got a proper whisk, it's probably better to use a proper whisk. Mine is somewhere, in fact it's here. And you see it all combining together. And when that's all done, at this point you will then add in the melted butter. So my butter is still not quite there. So I'm going to give it another minute or so. So my butter is melted, and I'm going to pour that 200 grams of melted butter into the big bowl, stirring continuously. And give it a really good whisk so it's nicely combined. It is much easier with a whisk actually than using a fork. And once that's mixed in, you then add the courgette. And you think, what an odd thing to put into a sweet muffin, courgette, but I promise you, you will not taste any kind of bitterness from the vegetable. It would just give it a really, really, really good texture. Okay, so next we're going to do the dry ingredients. The dry ingredients are the self-raising flour and also some ground almonds. So again, I'm going to use a nice wholemeal self-raising flour, but you just use whatever you like or whatever you've got available. And I'm going to put in about 100 grams of the self-raising flour, and then also 100 grams of ground almonds, but you can mix it up. And in fact, if you don't have any ground almonds, it'll be fine if you just use self-raising flour as well. But ground almonds, I find, makes the mixture much more moist, and also adds a little bit of protein into your muffin as well. So that's a bit more nutritious, not just very carb heavy. It's got a little bit of protein in. And to that we're going to add about a teaspoon of baking powder. If you don't have baking powder, again, it doesn't matter. It just means it won't rise as well. Half a teaspoon of salt. And about 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Now I always find that these types of spoons are really easy for getting things out of these jars because they're so narrow. And I like to put quite a lot of cinnamon in my dishes because it's just got such a good flavour, hasn't it? It's also got health properties too, so that's another benefit to using cinnamon. And that has that gets a good stir. And at this point you can mix in these dry ingredients into your wet ingredients. Put that to the side. That just gets added in. And to that, I also will add the cranberries. So if you've got cranberries, great. If you've just got sultanas or raisins, or maybe little bits of dried apricot, chopped up dried apricot, that will do as well. And I just get a handful. There's no real accurate measure for this, and that just goes in as well. And the whole thing gets mixed up together. So it's quite a loose mixture. Last week when we did the savoury pancakes, it was much more of a tight, stiff mixture, wasn't it? And then this one, can you see, quite runny. It doesn't make it, it makes it more difficult to actually transfer into the muffin cases. So you might get a little bit of spillage and things dropping around, but it doesn't matter. Just be as careful as you can. And once that's all mixed in, so this is what it should look like. Can you see? It's almost pourable, isn't it? And then we're going to transfer that into our muffin cases. And when we do transfer them into the muffin cases, you want them to go right to the very top of the cases. So I'm using an ice cream scoop. It's going to be quite tricky because can you see how loose the mixture is? And it's going to be quite messy, so it's almost like holding the bowl over. And you want to fill the cases all the way pretty much to the top. in this particular recipe. They're not going to overflow and rise too much. So we're going to finish these ones off. If you make a bit of a mess, don't worry. So all 12 muffin cases are now full, very much to the top, and the bowl is completely scraped out using a spatula. So this was just enough for 12 cases, and you can put them into the oven as they are now on about gas mark 3.5, so 3 to 4, which is around 150 degrees Celsius. But what I like to do is add something else on top. Now I've got this oat bran, which I just happen to have in the cupboard. If you have anything like this, or if you have some milled flax seeds, something with a kind of fine texture, you can also just sprinkle that on the top. And that, I find, gives it a little bit of a crunch. Quite often with things like sweet muffins, you know, people put sort of granulated sugar and things on the top to give it a crunch and extra flavour, but I am going the healthier option and using this oat bran. And that is now ready to go in the oven. My sweet courgette muffins are out of the oven and looking pretty good. They smell really nice. So I hope you give these a go. I'm sure you will love them, and you will not detect even the smallest hint of courgette, which you might think is better in a savoury muffin, not in a sweet muffin. But actually it just creates a really lovely moist flavour, so or texture should I say. So just please give it a go. Let me know how you get on. Take care. Bye bye.